to OMTimes Radio. The following is an encore presentation. Welcome to Joy of Business with host Simone Milasas, a dynamic business leader with a difference. Simone has founded and operated many businesses from a young age and has always done business differently. Today, Simone is the worldwide coordinator of Access Consciousness and travels the world presenting Joy of Business programs using access tools and empowering people to know that they can create business in a different way and make money doing it. Simone Milasas, weekly on OMTimes Radio.
Hi everybody, welcome to Joy of Business. You're on OMTimes with Simone Milasas. And I have a very special guest and a great friend of mine, Steven Bowman, here joining me today. Welcome, Steven.
I guess that's me. Hi, Simone. Hi, everyone.
It is you. And unfortunately, we have a pre-record here. Well, not unfortunately. We like doing pre-records. So we're in Brisbane, Australia. We're at a class at the moment with Dr. Dane here and Gary Douglas from Access Consciousness in Brisbane, Australia, doing bars and Foundation 1. And it's nice time here, and we're getting into business groups and what can we create together. That's the topic of our show today. Now, Steve Bowman, amongst being absolutely awesome, he works with his wife, Steven Bowman, around the world. They've written many, many books, and they literally go into corporations, not-for-profit, deal with CEOs, directors, everyone you can possibly think of, to challenge the way people actually think about their business and run their business and explore ways to redefine their leadership and management capacity. So to Steve, business is about creating a life and empowering other people to change their views of the world. So what if we could work together to create more possibilities than we could create working on our own? What can business groups contribute to the way you do business? Now, just to let you know, if you hear any other noise here, we've got his lovely wife, Steven Bowman. We've got Justine McKell from PR Media, McKell Media, and we've got Jonas Svensson all the way from Sweden as well. So we have a bit of a live audience here. We may include them in this show if they've got something nice and profound to say. So welcome, Steven. So this is a bit of we decided to have this OMTimes radio show with the business groups, What Can We Create Together? Because we are creating a class that you're doing called Benevolent Capitalism with Gary Douglas, with Steven Bowman, and with yourself. And we were looking at how can we, because it's live stream, it's in September, it's live in Melbourne, Australia. Melbourne absolutely rocks, you should come. And you've got these pods, but what we started, pods is a term that we use as in having a live stream audience in your own sort of workplace or venue, home, whatever that is. And we started talking about what it is to actually have a business group and what we can create together. And what do you define as a business group?
Well, it's interesting because if you look at each part of that, a business, what if business wasn't what you thought business was, but it was what you thought business was without it being what you thought business was? And so what if we actually got a group of people together that were willing to create outside of what they thought their business currently was? And one of the great things about these types of groups, and a group simply is just a bunch of people that actually want to have conversations that open up other possibilities. And what I've found over the years is when we get a bunch of CEOs together or senior executives or even people that are interested in a particular sector or in a particular area, and we start asking each other questions about, well, what if our sector didn't have to be like this? What would that look like? What if our business didn't have to be this way? What would that look like? What greater change can we make in the world? And a group of like-minded people actually getting together to talk about these sorts of things can become very invigorating, can become very strategic, it can become very innovative. But in all of that, it's the sharing of wisdom, the sharing of knowledge, and the sharing of innovation that actually creates a different possibility in the world. So what we used to do is I used to bring every 3 or 4 months, I used to bring a group of 7 or 8 CEOs together, and I would host, few bottles of wine and, some nibbles and that sort of thing. But then we'd pose some questions. What if performance management was different to what most people thought performance management would be? What would that look like? What stories have you got? What can you learn from this? What else could we learn? And so every 3 or 4 months, we would actually have a different question that we would ask this group of people. And one of the really neat things about this is it's not about presenting, it's about actually asking different questions. And one of the things I've always found is if you have a focus on a particular question and you use that as the springboard for extrapolation, this is where the power of business groups can be.
One of the things I noticed with you, Steve, is that your continuous willingness to look at the contribution of what people can be to each other. And it's like, I do Joy Business. This is the Joy Business, radio show. And it's like, to me, it is about contribution. But I don't see people doing that out there in this reality. It's more like at the bottom line. And it's like, can you talk to me a little bit more about how you see contribution with people and in these business groups?
I think one of the greatest killers of any business is the notion that many people buy into, which is that of competition. What if there was no competition? What if actually we got together with a group of people that were in a similar sort of area and we actually started asking each other questions? Because one of the things always is that no one can do business like you do. And so as soon as you think that someone can do business like you, then you start to dumb down what it is that you're doing. Because how you choose to see the world and how you choose to interpret what business means to you is what creates your business. And no one can be like that.
Okay, so the question is there. What does business mean to you, Steve Bowman?
Business, to me, means what everyone else thinks business isn't, which is having fun, creating a change in the world, and making money at the same time as having fun, creating a change in the world, and making money. One of the things always that we've found, and we work with thousands of businesses a year, usually at the top level of CEO and boards. But one of the questions we always ask them is, what difference do you make in the lives of the people that you have an impact with? So what difference do you make in the lives of people? And if we can understand the difference that we make in the lives of people, because in the end it's all about the people, if we understand the difference that we make in the lives of people, then we understand, in the business sense, our marketing advantage, our strategic advantage, our unique selling proposition. I could go on all day with the acronyms.
So one of the things that when you say it's all about the people, I love that. I think it's great. And unfortunately, I see a lot of the world making it about them.
So what if it wasn't about them? What if your greatest marketing advantage was actually understanding the difference you made in the lives of people? A widget manufacturer, the manufacturing of that widget makes the difference in the life of people. So what is that difference? And this is what I'd want our senior staff and our board, if we have a board, to really have a good look at. What difference does this make? Is it a sense of security, a sense of safety, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of joy, whatever it is? What difference does it make in the life of people? Once you understand that, then you can extrapolate from that energy, and anything that meets that energy then becomes another business stream for your organization. And it's sort of business 101 that's been lost over the decades. People are so focused on systems and structures without focusing on, hang on, everything we do has an impact on the world. If we darn well understand the impact that we have on the world, and therefore the impact that we have on people, the impact we have on the planet, if we understand what that is, then we get a true understanding of the difference that our organisation can make. And at the same time, make disgusting amounts of money.
So you mentioned a few times the impact on the world, and it's like one of the things that I know that you're involved in is benevolent capitalism, and your wife has just written a book which is out on Kindle at the moment. And what's it called?
Benevolent Leadership.
Benevolent Leadership. Excellent. And what one of the key words that the key taglines that I heard here is a better world starts with you. Now, throughout my whole entire life, I see people who think that they are not going to make a difference, that one individual is not going to make a difference. I know that I actually do, and I'm willing to admit that I've made a difference. like, say, with my involvement with Access Consciousness, it's like when a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, he was doing a Mind, Body and Spirit Festival in Australia, and, you know, he spent 4 days running people's bars, like talking about Access Consciousness, and had an introduction class afterwards. I was the only person who showed up afterwards, one person. Now, if he looked at that as whether he succeeded or failed, in this reality, it would have been that he failed, having one person showing up. But he was willing to sort of go through, do this introduction, talk to me about the tools, and here I am today. It's like so involved in Access. I know that I've created a great change in the world. And it's like, can you give me some more...
Oh, yes. So one of the things that it's just so darn exciting about business is if you're willing to look at business through the filter or through the way of looking at the world, that if we understand the difference that we make, then what you start to be able to do is to connect the dots that have always been there that you've been refusing to see. And so a dot might mean meeting with a person, but what that does is it creates an energetic connection that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. And so often what we find with businesses is that they've already decided what it is that they should be, or they could be, or they can't be, or they could be, or they shouldn't be, because that's what this reality says that they can or should be. That's what their sector says they can or should be. What if we actually understood what that was, but we didn't buy it as a reality? And what then starts to happen is if you start to actually understand what this reality expects of you as a business, but then look outside of that as well, how we choose to interpret reality is what makes our business the gift that it is.
How do you choose to interpret reality?
Any way that makes a difference.
Any way that makes a difference.
So the choosing to interpret reality is, how do you choose to see life? How do you choose to see regulation? So if we get straight down to tin tacks of business, every business has some sort of regulation attached to it. My point of view is, cool, how can I make that create strategic advantage for me? If I understand what my constitution says, if I understand what the legislation says, how can I create strategic advantage out of that? Because everything that you do, everything that actually regulates, can be interpreted in a million different ways. So damn it, get to work and work out what are the different ways of interpreting it, of seeing it, that actually create advantage for you and the people you make a difference to.
Steve, you're the one person in the world who actually made me excited about reading a constitution of a company. So we're going to head off to a break, and I'd love to give you, if you can give a few hints and some tips and some maybe, I think you've got some funny stories about reading constitutions. And one of the things you also mentioned, which I'd love to expand on, is what is expectation? So we're heading off to a break, and you'll be back with Steve Bowman and Simone Milasas on Joy of Business. Thanks for joining us on OMTimes.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
The Laying On of Hands Healing Radio Show is about treating the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. Join me, Charles Smith, as I share life-balancing measures such as nutrition and spiritual practices to help you take charge of your own health and wellness every Thursday at 7 p.m. on OMTimes Radio.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for School Girls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Joy of Business. We've got an interesting topic today, which we've touched on slightly and we will get back to, I'm sure, is business groups and what can we create together. I'm joined here with Steve Bowman.
Hi everyone.
And one of the things that we left on after the break was, well, two things. One is I wanted to hear more about extrapolation, and you've got some, okay, so what is the constitution of a business?
Well, of a company? What if everything that you thought was boring was in fact exciting, incredibly funny, and just hilarious? And one of the things that always we find in business is that your point of view creates your reality. So if you think that regulation or rules are boring and mundane, then you're absolutely right. To you, they're boring and mundane. However, if you start to look at regulation and the rules and therefore things like your constitution of your company as absolutely hilariously funny documents, then what do you start to look for?
What do you start to look for?
The hilariously funny bits in them. So, we do a lot of constitutional reviews. So whenever I'm looking at a constitution of a company, and I get to do probably 150 a year, I look at them and I look for the funny bits where you say, oh my God, they want to do what to whom? Do they realise that if they do that, then I can screw with them in this way? So your point of view creates your reality. If you think something's boring, then you're absolutely right. If you think something's funny and hilarious, then you look for the funny and hilarious stuff in there. And it just makes it a whole different way of reading them.
So if you have the awareness of the Constitution, then you actually have the ability to manipulate.
Well, if you go back to basics, and stay with me, folks, on this one, because I can feel some in the background. But if you go back to basics, there are certain rules that we have to understand and abide by. Some of those rules are black letter law, legislation, and constitution. Get over it, folks. You've got to know what they are. But what if you could turn all of those to your advantage? You got it. That was in stereo.
Yes, I won.
So, in anything that's along those lines, you've got to recognise that they're there to provide guidance, but how you choose to interpret them is what makes your business what it is. So if you are regulated in any way, it's how you choose to interpret those regulations, not what the bloody words say. If you've got a contract, it's how you choose to interpret that contract, not what the contract says. So it's all your point of view creates your reality. And I'm sure you've heard this from Simone many, many, many times in business. Your point of view always creates your reality. Your reality never creates your point of view.
So someone starting out afresh, they're either starting a business, they're already in a business, they're just being employed as a manager, anything, they're just, any of those aspects, and it's like, what do you start to look at with how to create a point of view that's actually going to expand your business, create greater possibilities?
What point of view would actually be more fun for you? Well, probably one that says it's going to be more fun for me.
The joy of business.
You got it. It's a J-O-B, joy. What's the next word? And then business. So what if everything actually had a joy associated? What if you could screw with people because you understood more about the rules and the regulations than they did, and you were willing to use it shamelessly in ways that no one else had thought of doing?
Shamelessly. Tell me more about that.
Well, shamelessly is where you're willing to look at something and say, okay, so how can I actually tweak this in a way that no one else has thought of? How can I use this in different ways? Who do I talk to? What advice can I get that can show me? Because I know there's 1,000,001 ways of doing anything. Let's narrow it down to the 2 or 3 that will give me the biggest advantage. What if that was the question you asked your financial advisor? What if that was the question you asked your legal advisor? What if that was the question you asked your accountant? How can we use this to our greatest advantage? Because every advisor will tell you, but they will only tell you if you ask them a question. And the very best question you should ask them is, how can we use this to our advantage, and what else don't we know that if we did know, we could turn it to our advantage.
Love it. So it's always bringing it back to the advantage that you have too.
And they will tell you, but they will not tell you anything unless you ask them a question.
No, I found that too. And you know what, I'm so incredibly grateful for you and your wife, Chitisa, because we've just recently changed accountants, and we've had, these meetings of financial 101, we call them, financial awareness 101 with the Bowmans, and it's been brilliant. And I highly recommend, if you haven't done it already, go and have a meeting with someone, a financial advisor. Have a meeting with 2-3 other accountants. Most of them will usually give you like an hour-long session and a consultation, and it's like, find out some more information. Because what Steve's talking about is the ability to play with your business, and it's the ability to have fun with it. And one of the things that we're talking about here today is with the business groups. It's like, I'd love to know more about, like, what are some of the pragmatics of setting up a business group? And it's like, what do you have to be? Like, do you have to be the leader? Do you have to be the one that's the most intelligent? Do you have to be the one that has, the most on their database? And it's like, what does that look like?
You know what most people are looking for is they're looking for someone who's willing to ask questions that no one else had thought of asking. So when we set up these business groups, I run them every 3 or 4 months. For the first 6 months, we would actually put on a lunch for them with a bottle of wine, not a big expense, and I would ask them to come along with one question, and we would actually set the question. The question for this month is, how are we dealing with performance management in ways that actually create change in our organisation? And bring along your show and tell.
So what sort of people would you invite?
I'd invite the CEOs, because if you're in charge of a department, then I'd invite other department heads from other like organisations. If you were the CEO, I'd invite CEOs from other like organisations, not necessarily in your sector. So if you're in aged care, I'd invite someone from health, someone from education, etc., etc. You don't have to be like peas in a pod. But you do, one of the things I found always very useful is to say we all have the same sorts of issues, just with different content. And so what I've always found was useful in setting up these business groups is, 6, 7, 8 people is more than enough. You give them one question to focus on for that meeting. And that question might be performance management. It might be, how do you deal with your board? It might be, how do you deal with recalcitrant staff? It might be, how do you deal with the raft of legislation? All these things. Now, bring along the innovative ways that you've actually dealt with it. People love to share stories. But they very seldom get the opportunity to share what those stories are. And particularly in a group where we're of a like sort of position in the organisation or a like level of responsibility. Because if you ask people to come along with what's worked and what hasn't worked, what's innovative and what they would do different, you have no trouble filling an hour and a half of the most strategic conversation you could possibly imagine. So let's say, for example, you're a chiropractor. What if you invited the owners of other chiropractors businesses along?
Do you want me to practice by trying to crack your neck?
Well, not in this 10 seconds. This could be a problem. But what if you invited the owners of other chiropractic business every 6 months to come along and talk about, so what are the 2 major issues that you're facing over the year, and what are the innovative ways that you're dealing with it?
So that's a real, it's really getting down to the, like we spoke about before, the contribution that people are actually willing to be together. It's not like this, you quite often hear people say, oh, I've got a great idea, but I don't want to tell people about it, or I don't want to talk about it because someone will either A, steal it, or B, put it down.
So that's only if people believe that someone else can be like them. If you truly understand that you are unique, you are an individual, you are a benevolent leader in your own right, no one can see the world the way you see it. Therefore, if you function from that space, there can be no competition.
Okay, so that's great. Do you have a couple of pragmatic tools that you can give to people to start to actually acknowledge that as themselves?
So one of the tools always is, and you would have heard this from Simone in a lot of her conversations with you, is the willingness to understand, or the willingness to actually acknowledge that you are you and you do yourself better than anyone else. And what the gift you are to the world is your willingness to be you. And so therefore, when you're willing to be you and therefore see the world through your eyes, no one else can see it like that. If you start to think that you need to be like someone else, you need to be like some other sector, you need to be like some other organisation, immediately you've shut down what the possibilities are.
It's like, bum, bum, choose again.
You got it. Okay, so how do I choose to see this would be one of the greatest gifts that you can give not only to your organisation and your business, but to the world generally. How do I choose to see this? Not how other people see it. How do I choose?
So then that would actually be a great question to be asking everybody that is involved, that you work with, and everyone that you involve that you ask to actually, come along to your business group. And it's like, because everybody has a different perspective.
And none of them are wrong.
Different. Yeah.
None of them are wrong.
And none of them are right.
Yeah. And it just gives you different insights that you could otherwise not have a conversation. Now, if you want to put a sexy term to it, I would call this strategic conversations about creating the future. Because that's what it is.
Okay, we have to have a chat if you think that's sexy.
Uh-huh.
Tell me how you see that as being sexy, Mr. Bowman.
What is sexier than the acknowledgement that you can actually create the future?
No, you're correct. Because to me, being creative and change is one of the sexiest things in the world.
And what's even sexier than creating the future is having no point of view about what the future should be and creating anyway.
Well, I get that what actually occurs with that is the space to have so much more show up. And it's like the space and the energy to create a completely different paradigm with business, a completely different paradigm with working together as a contribution. A better world starts with you.
Yeah.
So we're going to head off to a break, and we'll be back really soon. You're here with Steve Bowman, and I was about to say Chaitissa Bowman, but I'm actually Simone Milasas, Chaitissa Bowman sitting next to me. Now, if you want to actually find out more about Steve and Chaitissa Bowman, you can go to one of their websites, nomorebusinessasusual.com. It's one of their books that they've written, one of the many books. These are fabulous people, and I'm incredibly grateful to have them in my life. So we'll be back really soon. Thanks for joining us here on OMTimes.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram @JoyOfBusiness or Twitter @JoyOfBusiness and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
Hi, my name is Monica and I'm the host of Co-Creating Now. Give yourself an opportunity to connect with your all-knowing higher self and manifest joy, love and peace together every Tuesday 11 a.m. Eastern.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Joy of Business. You're on OMTimes with Simone Milasas, your host, and Mr. Steven Bowman. So, one of the things I'd like to ask you is we're talking about these, creating the business groups and what can we create together? And I keep harping on about that, what can we create together? Because it's not like as an individual person, it is a together. So what do you see happening in the future? Like, what do you see, I guess, like the new wave of what this looks like?
A great question, because the new wave, and this is just starting to happen right now, and we see this starting to happen across the world. But the thing that's really getting me excited at the moment is the conversation that's just starting to occur around the notion of benevolent leadership and benevolent capitalism. And in fact, we just had a group of very senior people meet this afternoon as a business group talking about benevolent leadership and benevolent capitalism. And the sort of questions that we were exploring then to help all of us in our business is, well, what would it be like for us to actually be the change that the world requires? What does that look like in our business? Now, for some of you, it might sound, airy-fairy and a bit up in the sky. This was actually really practical. So what would we need to be to actually create change in the world? Then created a whole range of different conversations with the senior leaders in this group, where we started to talk about, well, we need to start looking at that it's about people, it's not about systems, it's about the difference that people can be in the world, not about the difference an organisation can be in the world, because it all starts, ends and has the middle of people. And a lot of businesses think that they're dealing with other businesses. No, they're not. They're dealing with other people. And so if we understand the difference that we make in people's lives and that people can actually make a difference here, it gets rid of all the barriers that we've created around this notion of business.
So one of the things I'd like to address, though, too, Steve, is people, I see so many people sort of define business as corporate. And it's like one of the things we're talking about is creating these business groups. And, I mean, this afternoon I was lucky enough to actually be involved in that. And it's like, it's not as though they were all CEOs. And it's like, but what they were willing to be is a leader. So it's like, what sort of people do you see, like, sort of creating these business groups, or what that looks like? And does it have to be corporate, or can it be something else?
It doesn't have to be anything of what you've already decided business should be. So what if we are actually able to have these sorts of conversations with people that were willing to be who they were, rather than what other people had decided they would be? Now, what that means in cold, hard practicalities is people who are willing to be the question in everything, people who are willing to look to see what can be and can't be into the future, people who are willing to look to see what this reality looks like and also function outside of it as well as functioning inside it. And these are the people that are the benevolent leaders of our world. They're the people who actually know that it starts with them, and they're the change that the world requires. This is the excitement that we're starting to see in a whole lot of businesses, where people actually realise that who I choose to be then creates my business. And from that, then I can actually have an impact on the world in ways that others haven't even considered, and make a lot of money at the same time.
So one of the things that you're saying, though, is who you choose to be. And it's like, can you extrapolate a little bit more on that? Because I see people do this, I've got to do, like the do world, rather than you're referring to the being that someone is.
The beingness is actually really practical. It's not airy-fairy, rainbow bridge, up in the sky, unicorns and nice smelly flowers. What it is the willingness to be, is the willingness to function from that sense of curiosity, the what if, the what else, that little childlike sense of curiosity about, ooh, there's a bit of regulation. I wonder how I can turn that to my advantage. Or there's something that other businesses are doing. I wonder what I can learn from that and what other different ways there might be that I hadn't otherwise considered. That constant sense of curiosity is what creates a great business from one that's just a commodity. Too many businesses see themselves as commodities, where they're like everyone else and they have to work harder or longer or cheaper so they can be part of this commoditized business. What if your business was so different without being different, whilst being different, whilst not being different, whilst being totally different, whilst not being... What if that was actually how you chose to see your business, so that you could actually understand and work within the rules and break them constantly?
And I get that when you talk about that too, it's like the willingness to actually go with what you know. And I mean, that's not what's taught to you. You're meant to, like, if you're in a certain industry, you're meant to follow industry standards. You're meant to sort of like basically copy what other people are doing. And it's like, you know, I never did that. I don't think you ever did that. And it's like, what sort of like tools or hints can you give to people to actually be, I guess there's a way of like being confident in knowing that what you know can create a difference.
One of the greatest foundations for confidence is knowing that everything is just a question. And one of the things that we love about, particularly the things that Joy of Business talk about and that you live and embody yourself, Simone, is your willingness to be the question in everything. Because there are no answers out there, there's only questions, and those questions then lead you to awarenesses. Now, what that means for a business is, what if every time you came across something, you actually went into question before you went into conclusion? What if every time you came across something as a business, you asked yourself, so what are the questions I need to ask you that I hadn't thought of asking? Who could I ask? What could I ask? Where could I ask? What are the different things I hadn't thought of asking that I could ask? Because once you start looking at your business as actually a series of questions, and from those questions will then come innovation and the ability to look at things very differently. As soon as you start to see that from your business, then you actually start to create a really amazing business in what you're doing. So to me, the greatest sense of confidence that I've found in our businesses, and we advise and we work with thousands of CEOs a year, and every single one of them has said to us, the greatest gift we bring to them is their willingness to know that being the question is their most powerful strategic tool.
Nice, I like that. And I'm also reading one of your flyers I have here on benevolent capitalism. And you've got here like these tips for starting on the benevolent capitalism journey, which to me what we're talking about here is the business groups, is the benevolent capitalism, because we touched on competition before. I do wish to go back to that a little bit because that is primary one of the things that comes up for people where they have this paranoia about competition.
It'll screw them up every time. If they buy into the lie of competition, then they will start to define their world through the eyes of competition. What if there was no competition? What if you were the very best you that you could possibly be? No one can compete with that. And so, you know, we were on the radio a couple of days ago, and one of the things that the radio host picked up was one of the quotes that I gave, which I thought was actually quite amusing, which was, you know, competition, watch my dust, try and keep up. Now, what if you had that as a point of view?
Yeah. So, okay, so someone's starting a business group in their area. So because I can see it can be different areas. Like it can be like an industry, or it could be in a community. Like, I mean, we're at the moment, interestingly enough, in a place called Caxton Street in Brisbane, and it's owned by pretty much a family. They started with a fish and chip shop, and now they own, it's a really short strip on Caxton Street, but they earn multi-million-dollar businesses within this strip. Now, obviously, they've got the whole capital on it all, but it's like if you're in an area where you do have a business and you do have a retail shop or a business, etc., in this area, do you start to have like a business group with the people in your local area?
Absolutely, and it's not about trying to increase your business. That gets into competition. It's about asking the questions that will raise everyone's level of awareness through how they see it. See, and again, I reiterate, there is no competition until you decide there is competition. So that you can have, for example, some of the people in the street, the sort of questions you might want to ask people in the street is, well, what is it that we haven't considered about our street that is so obvious to us that we don't value and therefore assume that others won't value it? What does that look like for us? Now, what does that look like for you as the pub? What does that look like to you as the restaurant? What does that look like to you as the butcher? What does that look like? And then start to create from that. Now, what does that mean for my business? What insights can I get from that? And one of the great things in all of this is that every person has a lot of wisdom. It's just that they hide it under a whole lot of shit. So if you decide to actually set up a business group, one of the greatest gifts of that business group is to help ask the questions that no one else had thought of asking, but will actually help them in their business. And then they'll ask a question that you'd never thought of asking that will help you in your business. And it's not about trying to benchmark. That's rubbish. It's about, so what are some of the innovative thoughts that you've had? What are some of the innovative ways that you've looked at your business? Because if you truly function from no competition, if you take one idea and you have 5 people in your group, there'll be 5 different interpretations of that idea. Totally different. And so you cannot copy someone else's idea, or what you can do is take an idea and interpret it through the way you see the world. And that's, in the business sense, what you call strategic advantage.
Well, also, I've heard you talk about, Stephen, which I absolutely love, is choosing based on maximizing possibilities instead of maximizing profits. And what I get that is...
As well as maximizing profits, but not at the expense of maximizing possibilities, whilst also maximizing possibilities without just being driven by maximizing profits.
So I'm just wondering how many people you confuse now.
Absolutely, and that's where you want people to be, is where they are in that sense of, wow, I actually don't know anything. And if that's where you start to function from, then you can't buy into what other people have said you've got to do. So a lot of businesses think they're there just for the bottom line. Wow, what a waste. Because if you're there to actually look at, well, so what are the possibilities? If we understand, and we go back to the first 5 minutes of this conversation, if we understand the difference that we make in people's lives, and I don't care if you're a restaurant, I don't care if you're a chiropractic organisation, you're a social worker, you run a multi-million-dollar property development organisation, if you understand through the work you do or the things that you do, the difference you make in people's lives, then that understanding gives you an insight into business that no one else is likely to have. And anything that matches that difference that you make in people's lives is another business for you. And therein lies the start, the seed of benevolent capitalism, the seed of benevolent leadership, which is all about, so what else is there? What else can I change? What else is required of this? What are the things that can and can't be that I need, that I'm aware of? And that sense of excitement is what is the start of the journey towards benevolent leadership.
Well, I'm going to come back after the break, and I'm going to actually give you 4 tips on starting to be the benevolent capitalism journey. And one of the things I'd like to comment, though, on, Steve, is what I'd like to ask you, the listeners, is for what reason did you start your business? Because that's what I think it goes back to. I think people get lost in maximizing the profits rather than the possibilities. And what was the initial, reason that you actually started your business?
What difference did you want to make through the business that you created?
And are you doing that? So thanks for joining us. We'll be back really soon.
You can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Joy of Business with Simone Milasas and Mr. Steve Bowman. Now, I promised you that I would give you some tips for starting on the benevolent capitalism journey, and this is pretty much for starting your business group too. Number one is being in the question constantly, where everything is viewed through the lens of curiosity, not judgment. Number two, recognize and harness your power of awareness, which is your global, local, financial, strategic risk that is available right now.
Now, people might say, what the hell does that mean? Well, start reading stuff. Start looking to see what's happening out there in the world and ask yourself the following questions. So, what, if anything, does that mean to me and my business? And what, if anything, do I need to do about it? And then what changes does that create in the way that I'm willing to see the world? Who else do I need to talk to? What other businesses do I need to align with? What are the other information that I need to see? Because everything out there will have an impact on your business, and 99.9999% of people will refuse to see what that is. If you're a restaurant and you see, that's interesting, I'm looking at 3D printing, the first question would be, so what, if anything, does that mean to me? And you start looking at what does that mean? Oh, that might mean some different sort of equipment. It might mean a different way where people might actually interact with it. So start to look what that looks like. What if you could align yourself with an organisation that did 3D printing so that everyone that came to your restaurant actually got a little 3D model of their special night out? I don't know what it is. But it's all possible if you start to ask those questions.
I love that question. And that sort of brings number one and two into, working together as well. What does that mean to me and my business? And it's like, and what can create greater possibilities? Love it. Because you know what? I mean, I always talk about questions on this Joy Business radio station because it's like, it's imperative to ask questions. And question will always give you more information. It will always open you up to a greater possibility.
Can I reframe that?
Yeah.
If you ask questions, you'll make more money.
Boom, boom. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it right here. Steve Bowman on Joy Business, OMTimes Radio. So number three, for tips for starting on the benevolent capitalism journey, is destroy your assumptions that hold you and your business and your people back. So I would expand on that too with, it's like destroying and uncreating any of the places that you have a judgment. And it's like, what judgments do you have of you? What judgments do you have of your business where it currently is? I mean, I see people who have these like brilliant ideas and they start a business and maybe it doesn't show up the way they thought it was going to show up because nothing ever does. And it's like 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. And they start to go into the judgment of what isn't created rather than what you have created. So I'd be asking you to destroy and uncreate everything that is and all the judgments that you have and everything that is, times of Godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all names, shorts, boys and beyond. Oh, there you go. There's that Access Consciousness Clearing Statement. You can find out more information on theclearingstatement.com or my website, accessjoyofbusiness.com. So, number four, expand your zone of awareness and foresight as a leader. Do you want to expand on that, Steve?
This is such fun. Yeah, one of the things always is if you start to look at what's happening out there, and again, we come back to the key questions, is so what's happening out there now and into the future? Now, what, if anything, does it mean to us and our business? And then what, if anything, do we need to do about it? Is a great way of actually looking to see potential future, possible maybe, plausible maybe, perhaps. See, the one thing we know about the future is, and in the technical term it's called NFI, and we have no idea of what the future is going to be. We just know it's going to be different than what we've already decided it should be. So you can never be surprised if you know the future is always going to be different than what you think it should be. So always when you're looking at your business, start reading. You know, if you're in any business, start to read some of the technical journals, start to read some of the things that people are writing about it, and say, now what, if anything, does that mean to me? And then what, if anything, do I need to do about it?
No, I want to stop you on this part because that's a really relevant question. Is most people think they have to do something about everything. And it's like, no. And it's like, do you actually need to do anything with it? Just because you have an awareness of something doesn't mean you have to do anything.
What, if anything, do I need to do with this? Is a great question to ask. So an awareness might be, let's say you're in a particular sector. So let's say you're in personal development, of whatever that might be. And you start to see that there's this whole movement out there called mindful leadership, all right? Because you're starting to read it everywhere. So the first question would be, so what's happening out there now and into the future? Mindful leadership is a big topic that people are starting to look at. Now, what, if anything, does that mean to me? Well, there's a good question. What does mindful leadership mean? Maybe I'd better explore this a bit more. What if there was more than mindful leadership? What if there was, over and above what I'm doing, what other people are interested in as well as too? What ideas does that give me? Now, having that awareness, now what, if anything, do I need to do with it? And the awareness that you get from understanding what, if anything, do you need to do about it? What if, even if you decided not to do something, you could turn to your advantage? What if not doing something was your biggest strategic advantage?
Well, I like that.
Okay.
It's very manipulative. So what's mindful leadership?
Mindful
Mr.
leadership.
Bowman?
At the moment, there's a lot of conversation out there about this notion of mindful leadership, which is all about being in the present, being in the now, and having no judgment. The difficulty with that is that it's very inward focused about an individual. One of the things we're starting to see now is this wave of looking at the world and business through the lens of benevolent leadership, benevolent capitalism. And where mindful leadership, this is way beyond mindful leadership. And so people that are willing to look at this from a sense of benevolent leadership or benevolent capitalism know that there's always an and what else, and what else, and what else. Never satisfied, it's always and what else. The truly benevolent leaders are starting to realize that there's infinite possibility out there, and they can actually change the world in the things they do on a day-to-day basis. And this is the great movement that's just starting to occur now. We're just starting to see the wave of this occur, where people are starting to say, hang on a second, this is not enough. Mindful leadership is not enough. It's great, good start, and what else? What other change can be created?
Yeah, I'd say the tide is definitely turning, and there's a totally different new way to look at business and look at the way, the impacts that we have in the world. And I've got to say, not just from a Band-Aid solution, not just from, to me, it's like when the whole green stuff came out, it's like, that should be just the way we live, like not just like the way we promote our business. It's like corporate social responsibility, and it's like, I get that there is this new tide coming. It's a new wave. It's a new way of being with business and how we can actually change the world and incorporate.
The time now is what
that
needs to change. And so what we need to do in business is look at, so what needs to change? Because it can. It's just our point of view that keep us locked in where things are. And the truly benevolent leader is the person who is constantly saying, so what can be? What can't be? What is it that needs to change here? And from that, if they're willing to embrace that, they can't have competition because no one else is thinking that way.
Yeah, I get. Well, you know what? In a world, Steve, where you are creating, you are playing, you're having a joy of business, it's like you're functioning from that place. There is no competition. There is no judgment. There is no limitation. There's only possibilities, and there's greater possibilities.
And they're not just great ideas. We're starting to see organisations function from this, where they're no longer about just minimising harm. They actually want to create change. And once you understand that you are there to create the change that's required, then innovation starts to kick in, because then you start to connect the dots that the universe has always been trying to show you, that you've never actually thought of connecting.
So we've got a couple of minutes here to go. People actually do change in their local area, in their local industry. What's step one, step two?
Well, step one is it starts with you. Every single person has the ability and also the demand that it actually starts with them. So what would it take for them to actually become the benevolent leader that they truly can be? So always, never worry about what position you hold, what organisation you're with, whether you're in an organisation or not. The key thing would be, so what change is required here to create a different future? They can also go to, there's some tools that they can use. If they go to benevolentcapitalism.com, there's some great videos on there that will actually inspire you to look at things differently, some tools that can be used. But it's not about an answer. You don't actually become a benevolent capitalist. It's the change in the way you see the world that creates the benevolent leadership that will then create the system of benevolent capitalism that can actually fundamentally change our world so that we all have a future.
And to me, the greatest gift about that, Steve, is seriously the play. It's like the joyfulness and the play that it has. It's like it takes the significance out of business. It takes the rules and the regulations. It's like, what would you like to create? And it's like, and follow that. Go with your knowing. And it's like, continue to be that benevolent capitalism that you are. Hey, we're going to start a hashtag. Hashtag Better World starts with you, because that's where we're heading, and a better world does start with you. So if you want to post anything on any social media, you can also go to the Access Joy Business Facebook group, and we'll be putting stuff up there and giving you different information. So hashtag Better World starts with you. And I really want to thank you so much, Steve Bowman, for joining me here today. I always love having you on the show, and I'd love to have you in the future. So again, people can go to benevolentcapitalism.com, and also you can go to, for more information on Steve Bowman, you can go to
nomorebusiness.com, and you'll find some very cool stuff on there in terms of pragmatic futurists and a whole lot of other things. And there's one other website as well too.
No, here I had a mistake. It's called nomorebusinessusual.com. You're brilliant, Steve, and your website is nomorebusinessusual.com. So thank you so much for joining us, Steve Bowman, and we'll see you next time on OMTimes with Joy Business, Simone Milasas and Steve Bowman. Thank you for joining us.